G'day superstars, welcome to Mr. Jorgensen's classroom. Today I'm going to be talking about symbolism in the Secret River. So let's define what symbolism is first. So symbolism is the use of symbols to signify ideas and qualities by giving them symbolic meanings that are different from their literal sense. So what do we mean by literal sense? We mean, for example, if I wanted to represent writing for some reason, I wouldn't show in my novel or my film a picture of writing, because that's very literal and doesn't leave my audience much room for thinking for themselves. So I could use something like a pen to represent that writing instead. Okay. Another example of a symbol that we see in our world to represent an idea is, I guess, a gaming controller. It doesn't represent specifically like the Xbox or anything like that. It just is representing gaming. It's representing the idea of gaming to people. We also have something like dice, which can represent chance or gambling, for instance. And that's how symbolism functions in our society. But when we think about literature, we're thinking about how the author is using that symbol to represent an idea that goes throughout the novel or represents a major theme in the novel. So, for instance, while we could see a chain as a symbol of union, we could also see that as a symbol of imprisonment. And it's up to us as a reader, as an English student, to really think about the context and the use of the symbol to figure out the meaning behind it and how it relates to the overall themes of the novel. So let's have a look at some symbolism from the Secret River. We're going to look at rivers, daisy yams, and fences. Let's get into it. In the Secret River, rivers are a major symbol, believe it or not. You wouldn't have guessed from the cover art and the river word in there. But rivers in this novel are everywhere, from the River Thames in London to the Hawkesbury River in Sydney. And they're a major thing in Thornhill's life. They're a place of his salvation and a place of his destruction. In London, the River Thames finally gives him the ability to move up that social hierarchy, to become a waterman, to move into that middle class as a worker. But when it freezes over, his whole world is torn apart. In Sydney, the Hawkesbury River is a place of danger that he can navigate quite easily, but it also, at the same time, undoes himself. So rivers in this sense are both saving and also destructive. And I think it is symbolic of a number of things. There's not necessarily one thing that it captures entirely, but for me, I just notice all throughout the novel that it's this flow, that things are constantly changing in Thornhill's life, and the reliance upon nature for the people of this time just demonstrates how, I guess, hard it was for people to live off the land and how difficult it was for people to thrive in this period of time because of how inhospitable the world is, especially the river. The next symbol we're going to talk about are daisy yams. And these are a symbol of a few things, and they contribute to a number of themes. First of all, the daisies are a symbol of food for the Diary people. They're a source of sustenance. So when they're torn up by Thornhill to be replaced by corn, it's a symbol that they don't have enough sustenance, enough life necessarily to continue on. It also represents, in a sense, the fragility of the Aboriginal people. So we could interpret these daisies to be a symbol of the Aboriginal people. And as Grenville says, they're so easily to discard, and once they're discarded, they don't grow back like other weeds. And by saying this, she's commenting the fact that once the culture is dug up and is dismissed and thrown away to the side, it doesn't grow back, and we're losing something. It's fragile. It disappears. So daisies in this sense represent for us the Aboriginal culture and the ease of loss that there is to the historical Aboriginal culture. A symbol that can represent a number of different things. First of all, they represent for some of the characters the idea of colonialism, of owning a space. Can we see that? And it's how they claim their land. And this is the attitude, the value, and belief of the colonizers. And it's embodied in this quote here. There were no signs that the blacks felt the place belonged to them. They had no fences that said, "This is mine." No house that said, "This is our home." There were no fields or flocks that said, "We have put the labor of our hands into this place." So fences create a sense of home for our people in the novel. They create a sense of belonging for the colonizers in this novel. And the way in which people react to fences, or when people encroach on their fences. In this quote here, when Webb was on the place, he did not let the blacks come within his fences, ran out with the gun if he had to make them leave. So fences represent a place of ownership, of belonging, that says this is mine, which is completely different to how the Aboriginal people are perceiving land. So fences in this sense are symbolic of ownership of someone's own personal property. It's also a sense of someone's world.